So we're in the second week of the Every Bit Counts Challenge that's hosted by Jessica at Three Rivers Homestead, and it's been a busy one. I know you guys have been busy too because I've been seeing your pictures come in, and they're beautiful, and they bring me such joy to hear the stories behind why you do what you do. Today I'm looking forward to showing you what I got done this week. It was a fun one. I did a lot of things that were tried and true, things you've seen me do before in full-blown videos. Some things I do around here pretty much all the time that I don't necessarily show in videos, and then some new to me things for recipes that I'm testing. I'm excited to show you what I managed to get done. Welcome to Garb Reserve. I'm Carter, and I'm so glad you're here today. Let's get started. And I'm going to start this week with a couple of fermentation projects so that by the end of this episode, you'll be able to see the results. The first thing I'm going to do is just ferment some pickling cucumbers from the garden. I have some onions and some garlic also from the garden, and you'll see in a minute I'm going to decide to add some hot peppers as well, make David happy with his pickles here. So the first thing you do when you bring your cucumbers in is you want to get that blossom end off. That's where the enzymes are that will start to degrade the cucumber immediately after picking. So the sooner you can get that off and your cucumber in a pickling brine, in a salt brine to ferment, or eaten fresh, the better off you will be in terms of crunchiness for that pickle. So my brine for fermenting pickles is 1 quart of water to 3 tablespoons of salt. And I use Redmond's real salt in this. So as you can see, I'm just doing my cucumbers in slices today. But one of my favorite things to do at the end of pickle season is to ferment whole cucumbers. They can stay in my refrigerator after they finish fermenting for months. In fact, David literally just finished the last jar that I had in there maybe a month ago. So I look forward to doing that if my cucumber plants will cooperate this year. They're a little stingy with the cucumbers they're giving me this year, so we will see. So I'm just going to arrange these in there. They start out really pretty, and then of course the fermentation process, like the canning process, breaks down the fruit in there, and the color just doesn't come out quite as beautiful. But they're still delicious. So let me tell you how it happens in my house that we decide when a ferment like this in particular is ready. David will eat a pickle every day, and then he will declare them done. So these happen to go for 6 days, but really anywhere from 3 to 7, 8, 10 days. Just depends on your taste, how much twang you want in there, or some people call it funk. How much funk you want in there is just fine. So anyway, these turned out to be a big hit. Before setting this aside to ferment, you want to add your brine, and then you want to weight down what's in there. So anything that stays below the brine is going to ferment perfectly safe. Things come up above, you just throw them out, or rearrange, or add a little more brine, or weight them down differently. But all you want to do is keep what is to be fermented underneath the brine level. So I use a little weight, and then I just covered them with a coffee filter here. All right, this is another fermentation project, and this is a new one to me. It's from a book called The Hands-On Home. I've had it for a while, and I love reading it, but I actually I don't think I've done anything from it yet. So today we're gonna fix that. This is a fermented pico de gallo, and let me tell you, I'm just going to give you the heads up right now. This stuff was so good. I'll definitely be doing this again. So I had some tomatoes from the garden. I'm going to read you the ingredient list here. 2 pounds of tomatoes, cored and chopped, are about 4 cups. 1 pound of onion, peeled and chopped, are about 2 cups. 3/4 of a pound of green or red bell pepper, seeded and chopped. Now I used that yellow pepper there. The long skinny one is from the garden. That's an escamillo, and the other one is just a bell from the grocery store. And I really like what the yellow color did in this. So up to you what you use. 2 medium jalapenos, seeded and chopped. 2 garlic cloves, chopped. 1 bunch of fresh cilantro, trimmed and chopped. 1/2 cup of freshly squeezed lime juice. 4 teaspoons of fine sea salt, and 1 teaspoon of ground cumin. So this turned out to be a really beautiful, really tasty ferment. I also made, while I was doing this, some fresh pico for us to have for dinner that night. It was delicious too, but it has a totally different taste than this fermented version, and we both loved it. So the directions in the book say to let this one ferment for 2 to 4 days, but I tasted it on day 3, I think it was, and it wasn't quite funky enough for me. So I let it go another couple of days, and it actually ended up going 5 days, I believe, and it's just perfect. You'll notice that I had set aside this tomato, and that's because I wanted to be sure to remember to save seeds from it. It's the prettiest one out of the whole bunch, and so every time I see a really pretty one, really big one out of my garden, I try to save the seeds on it. These are all heirloom seeds, so there's no issue with saving them for next year. So the proper way to save tomato seeds is to pull out the seeds, the pulp, and all of that gelatinous juice stuff, put it in a jar, add a little bit of non-chlorinated water, swirl it around, break it up a bit, and then let it ferment for, they say 2 to 4 days. Sometimes it's like 5 to 7 days for me before all of the kind of gelatin comes off those seeds. And when they're done, the viable seeds will go to the bottom of the jar, and anything that's on top is fine. It may get kind of gross looking, but that's okay. The seeds on the bottom are absolutely fine. So just get rid of the gross stuff and then filter out those seeds and rinse them several times, dry them well, and then save them for next year.
I wanna do it all with you by my side. If you're in, meet me here tonight. Be brave and come along. I'll be your ride. Promise we don't need no brake lights. We can travel the world, so just say yes. Choose to do whatever comes next. This or that, getting drunk on whiskey on a Tuesday night, or drinking red wine by an open fire, make love or fight. This or that, this or that, evenings on the train or catch a morning flight, enjoying dinner until midnight, or in bed by night. This or I wanna see it all, find the northern lights, see the stars in the open wild, catch a glimpse of Panama. We don't need a map, I'll let you know when we've arrived, yeah. We can travel the world, so just say yes. Choose to do whatever comes next. This or that, getting drunk on whiskey on a Tuesday night, or drinking red wine by an open fire, make love or fight. This or that, this or that, evenings on the train or catch a morning flight, enjoying dinner until midnight, or in bed by night. This or we can travel the world, so just say yes. Choose to do whatever comes next. So just be brave and come along. I wanna do it all. This or that, getting drunk on whiskey on a Tuesday night, or drinking red wine by an open fire, make love or fight. This or that, this or that, evenings on the train or catch a morning flight, enjoying dinner until midnight, or in bed by night. This or this or that, getting drunk on whiskey on a Tuesday night, or drinking red wine by an open fire, make love or fight. This or that.
So here's what I'm saying about those yellow peppers in there. I just think it brightens that up so nicely. Absolutely beautiful. Gorgeous in the bowl, gorgeous in the jars. I'm looking forward to this one. This recipe makes 2-quart jars. So these have just come out of the dishwasher and cooled down. I didn't want to put this in when they were hot, so they are cool now. And I'm going to pack them in there, and you'll see I'm going to go get my kraut pounder so I can squish some more in here, and it'll ferment really well with all the juices.
You can see I'm really smushing them down in the jar, really like you do when you make sauerkraut. You want it to start to produce its own liquid, and that's going to help you in the fermentation process. So again, I'm going to use the glass weights to keep all of the solids submerged under the liquid. And then I'm going to use my pickle pipes on this one. You will see those. They allow it to release gases, although this actually did produce quite a few gases, and I did have to loosen them a couple times during the fermentation process. But there's a little hole top of that little bubble there, and supposedly that releases the, I think it's CO2 created by the fermentation. But there we go. Aren't they gorgeous? I was really happy with those. All right, next we are going to an old standby. This is one of my most used tomato products that I have in my pantry. And I'm just doing a small batch today because I really am concerned about my pantry supply getting me through until I can do a large batch, which usually happens after all of my other canning. It's one of those things where, because I'm roasting everything, I can throw the tomatoes in the freezer and not worry about it, so it can be a project saved for later. So I'm just going to get 3 pints out of these, but I am doing, it's roasted tomatoes, onions, and garlic. Now, although I'm not following specific ball instructions, it's pretty darn close to a couple of their recipes. And it can be done 2 ways. In the Ball Blue Book, the old one that looks like a magazine, on page 82, there is roasted Roma tomatoes. And this is very similar to that, only I speed up the process immensely the way I do it. So I have a video on that, and I'll put that up in the top corner. That is a water bath canning version. And it's really good. It's really tasty. I actually prefer these water bath, but they have to be in a water bath for an hour and 25 minutes. And I just don't always have that long to babysit a pot of boiling water. So today I'm going to pressure can these. And so for that, I use the timing of Ball's stewed tomatoes on page 69 in the same book. So pints are going to process for 15 minutes, and quarts would process for 20 minutes. I always do these in pints because I'm usually combining it with, a spaghetti sauce or just tomato sauce, or maybe I'm just combining it with proteins and throwing it in, or it's going in a soup. So a pint is about the right size for us. So I will do 15 minutes in the pressure canner on these. As I said, I really prefer the texture that comes out of the water bath, but good golly, who has an hour and 25 minutes to sit around waiting for a batch of 3 jars to come out? Now, when I do my big batch, probably this fall, I will most likely use my big water bath canner, and I will suffer through it because I'll get so many jars out of it. So here we go. I'm adding a tablespoon of lemon juice to each jar, and this is still hot. I had it warming up on the stove for a minute while I got everything ready for the jars. So these are going in, and then when I go to use these, my tomatoes are there, my onions are there, my garlic is there, and I really like the lemon flavor in my tomatoes. I think it just adds a pop of, brightness, I guess, to this. So I really enjoy these. Now, unfortunately, I somehow did not manage to film these coming out of the canner, but I will show you those in the finale shot. Next, we're going to move on to something you've seen me do, but I'm doing a slightly different version this time, simply for my shelf. So I'm going to do some very hot pickled peppers today. So except I think I put 2 banana peppers in here, which are mild. Everything else is blazing hot, which is just the way my husband likes it. So I always try to get some super hot pickles on the shelf for him. And he'll eat them with a fork. I just think the man has lost his mind, but he absolutely loves them. So I'm going to go through this little process again, and I think I get 4 pints out of this. They're beautiful in the jar. Like the fermented thing, when they process, they lose a little bit of their color. But I just think that they're beautiful jars on the shelf, and he loves them. So I will continue to do these, even though we now have that hot pepper relish that we love so much. Now, I know someone's going to comment that I should be wearing gloves when I work with hot peppers, and yes, you're probably right. However, realistically, it just doesn't always happen. So I'm pretty careful. And I do find that if I wash my hands with some baking soda and lemon, that it takes care of any residual heat issues there that I might have. But I am very careful not to get it on my fingertips. So the brine I like to use with these is 3 parts white vinegar, 1 part water, and then if I want to add some seasonings, that's just fine. I don't think I added anything special for these jars here. You'll notice I did put the garlic in the bottom, and I sliced up some onions and put those in there. And you're going to see in a minute that I'm also going to slip in a jar of pickles to get done in the same processing batch because they go for the same amount of time. So I'm going to steam can these for 15 minutes, and then I'm going to have, I think 4 more is what I'm going to get on my shelf. So I'm pretty excited about that. This is one of those super simple, super straightforward projects that I don't mind doing all the time. And you'll see me probably do this every week because that's when the peppers come in and I don't want to let them sit in the fridge waiting for me. So I want to go ahead and take care of them. But it's such a, I don't know, it's just a peaceful thing to do. I don't need to worry about the recipe because I've done these, I don't know, hundreds of times maybe. And it's instant gratification. They're done in 15 minutes. So here comes the final product. There we go. See, oops, sorry, that picture is kind of tough there. So not quite as bright as when they went in, but they're still going to be beautiful on the shelf. And there are those pickles. My lone pint jar of pickles for the shelf so far this year. Now, these are some tomatillos. I made the decision, I guess, early this spring that I was not going to grow tomatillos again this year. I did them last year, and I don't know, they just did not earn their keep in my garden. I had 3 plants. One of them did absolutely nothing. One of them got huge, absolutely gigantic, but maybe gave me 2 fruits. And another one kind of looked anemic the whole time and gave me the rest of the fruits. And it just wasn't very good. It wasn't worth the real estate they took up. I'd much rather plant tomatoes or something else in their stead. So I made the decision that as soon as I found tomatillos at the market, I would buy them and prep them for the freezer so that they would be ready for salsa verde. I made that last year for the first time. I have a video on that, so I'll link it up above. It turned out to be so great. I mean, just a wonderful addition to my salsa shelf. And David loves it. It's a little bit spicier than the other ones. I like to use it in recipes. It's even good. I can even handle dipping a chip in it. It's not too hot for that. So I was really excited to find these. They look absolutely gorgeous. Do you know that tomatillos underneath this husk are really super sticky? So I really want to do a good job washing these. And you'll see I'm going to bring out the food-grade hydrogen peroxide just to make sure, because, I didn't grow these, and I know they're covered by a husk, but, shoot, I want to make sure that anything we're going to be eating, I'm going to be canning with, is clean and safe. So you could also use vinegar, or there are lots of, fruit sprays, fruit cleaning sprays out there. But this works for me, and I always have it on hand. So I'm going to get these dried and put into a freezer bag and into the freezer to wait for me, because I won't be making salsa verde until the end of tomato season, when I have a ton of green tomatoes that I'm pulling off, the day before the first frost is expected to come. So we'll see. It'll give me something fun to do in late October, early November. So I'm looking forward to that. But this was a quick and easy thing, but something that was absolutely on my list that I did not want to miss doing. Now, I'm on a mission to fill up during the month of August 2-quart jars of these dehydrated cherry tomatoes. So I am I am well on my way. And you know that this happens in my house almost every day, right? It's just a nonstop thing during the summer here. So I'm trying to get as much done as I can this month so that I'm not really cramming it in September, early October, just in case there is, more disease that I have to deal with. So here's my next batch. It's going in. You saw that I pulled out the dehydrated skins from the roasted tomatoes that I did earlier. So when that jar gets full, I will grind it down and make some tomato powder. If I can keep control of these tomatoes, I'm going to just get them on the trays here. I'm not going to make you watch me slice all these cherry tomatoes again. So you know what goes on from here. We'll move on. We're going to start another fermentation project. So you won't see the end result of this one in this video, but you'll see it next week, I hope. I have not done this before, so I'm expecting it'll be done by next week, but it could be the week after that. So we will see. We are going to make some sriracha. So I'm going to ferment it first, and then I'm going to can it. You don't need to can sriracha, but I have a lot of ferments going on, and I generally use my the garage refrigerator to hold all the ferments, and it's getting pretty full in there, so I think I'd rather get this on the shelf. Now, I am going to use a glove with these. These are some red jalapenos, and I tried one, and they are super spicy. And these red jalapenos are not from my garden. They are from the same market where I got the tomatillos. I had to make a quick trip down to Atlanta, and there's an international market down there. So I stopped in, and I can always count on them for having all the peppers I need, tomatillos, my coconut milk that I use, all kinds of good stuff. So I grabbed a few things while I was down there, and I was happy to find these. I did look for sriracha sauce down there, and I actually bought some, but I paid a fortune for it. I don't know what the deal is with sriracha being so hard to find these days. They say it's the peppers, but they make it with either the red jalapenos or serrano peppers, and both of them seem to be, relatively abundant, at least at this international market. So I don't know, but I'm going to have a couple of jars in the pantry, and I'm going to be really glad to have them there. So I have not made this before. I'm combining a couple of recipes. As I said, we're going to do the fermentation part first, and then I'm going to do the canning when this is ready. So I'm not really sure how long this is going to take. I think, 5 to 10 days, but we'll find out. So I'm going to blend it up really well. And the fermentation part of this recipe calls for brown sugar. I don't normally use sugar. I'm going to use just 1 tablespoon of sugar and just a little bit of molasses. And then when it comes time to can this, I'll add the allulose. I'm not going to do the allulose now because I don't know how that is affected in a fermentation. So we'll try to be as by the book as we can with something that's fermented. And that's it. I'm going to cover this, and I'm just going to sit it in a nice quiet spot. And now we're moving on to a fun recipe that was given to me by one of you. I'm going to make some canned coleslaw. I have so many cabbages in my refrigerator from the spring. They're still there. We've eaten through, 3 or 4 of them. And I still have, even after making this with 4 or 5 heads of cabbage, I still have 5 heads left. So I'm really drowning in it. So David loves coleslaw. I have never tried canned coleslaw because I'm concerned it won't be crunchy. He likes it really crunchy. But Lori tells me that this stays crunchy, so I'm going to give it a go. I am sure she is absolutely right. I'm going to make one small tweak which may affect that crunch in a negative way, so I'm going to try to combat that. So you'll see what I do here. I have not opened a jar of this yet, so I'm going to try to give it a couple of weeks, and then we'll do a taste test. But I also, while I'm doing this, I made a batch of refrigerator coleslaw using the exact same recipe. I just didn't process it. And those have been a huge hit. I think I ended up with 7 pints canned and 7 pints in the refrigerator. And I'm down to 5 pints in the refrigerator, and I literally just made this a couple days ago. So it's been a huge hit. David has found the stash and he's going after it. So I don't remember now whether I did 1.5 times the original recipe or 2 times the original recipe. But let me read you what I was working from that Lori sent. 14 cups of shredded cabbage, 2 large carrots peeled and shredded, 1 large onion chopped, 1 or 2 sweet peppers sliced in strips, 2 tablespoons of kosher salt or pickling salt. So you combine all of those ingredients in a large bowl, cover and set aside for an hour, and this is going to draw out some of the moisture to help keep it nice and crisp. To make the brine, add the ingredients listed below to a pot and bring to a boil. Remove from heat to allow it to cool down. 3.5 cups of white vinegar, 2 cups of water, 3.5 cups of sugar. This is the original recipe. I'll come back and tell you how I altered this. 3.5 cups of sugar is in the original recipe, 1 tablespoon of mustard seed, and 1 tablespoon of celery seed. Now, this is primarily a product that David will eat, so I did not use sugar in this recipe. I used allulose. I have not done it in this recipe before. But as you probably know about sugar, it doesn't really affect the safety of a product, but it does help preserve the texture and color of a product. So Lori says that when done following this recipe, that this is a very crunchy product. Well, I just took away part of the thing that preserves the crunch and taking away the sugar. So I used allulose, and to help make up for that, I added a little bit of pickle crisp. It's not my favorite thing to add, but I did it because I wanted to make sure that this was going to be something tasty that he would enjoy, because I have another 5 cabbages I need to do something with. So we'll see. I will taste this in a couple of weeks when it's ready, and I will let you know how it worked with the allulose. But this was a pretty easy project to do. So you had to go get a second bowl. So I'm going to separate these out, and this is when I'll start here in just a second, separating out what I'm going to can and what I'm going to put in the refrigerator. This makes for a really pretty mixture. I love having the colors of the peppers in there. And next time I might even add some more peppers. So I've had the brine over on the stove heating up, melting the allulose. You would be melting your sugar. And I'm going to do I think that these are the refrigerator pickles I'm doing first. So I'm just going to stuff them in there, and we'll get the brine on those and then get those off to the refrigerator. Because these jars are just going in the refrigerator instead of into the canner. You'll notice that I really don't care much about headspace or anything like that. It's a little messy, but it'll be just fine, and David obviously loves them. So the batch destined for the canner looks just as beautiful. I did take significantly more care in packing these with the proper headspace and debubbling and everything. And these, I think, look pretty good coming out of the canner. As you know, everything tends to show a little bit of liquid down there in the bottom, but it'll settle down once they cool. And they just look terrific. I'll show you a picture in a minute. All right, so let's see what the fermented pickles look like. They look pretty good. They're ready. This is the jar that David has been trying to pickle out of each and every day. So it's a little eaten down a bit, but he says they're perfect. These are hot, spicy ones, so I'm going to leave these for him. Now here is this pico de gallo. This is just such a good thing. So I'm going to be very careful about washing my hands. I don't want to introduce any kind of bacteria in there. I'm going to get the weight out and get it mixed up. Look at that. It's beautiful. And it tastes pretty darn good, I have to tell you. So I'm going to put these in the refrigerator. These are going to stay inside in the refrigerator because I think I'd like to eat them a little faster. The book says they'll last 4 months, but I don't know. I haven't tried that yet, so I think we'll probably finish these here in the next month or so.
so let's wrap up with a final tally of what I got done this week. Start with 3 pounds 11 ounces of tomatillos that'll be waiting for me in the freezer for when I'm ready to do my salsa verde at the end of the tomato season. So I'm excited to know I already have those ready. I finished my first quart of cherry tomatoes. I know you all were pulling for me on that one. So I also managed to add 4 pints of hot peppers to the pantry shelf. David was pulling for this one. So these are great. These are his level spice. A little bit spicy for me, but he loves them. I made 2 quarts of fermented pico de gallo. As you can see, this one we've already eaten through half quart there. It is really tasty. I'm really enjoying this one. We also fermented some pickle slices. We've been working on those as well. And I have 1 little pint that I canned for the pantry. I added 3 more pints of my roasted tomato, onion, and garlic. This was a small batch to get me through until I can do my big batch at some point when I have time to process all the tomatoes. Then I did 7 pints of coleslaw for the pantry and 7 pints of coleslaw for the refrigerator. I'm down to 5 pints on my refrigerator coleslaw right now, so if that gives you any idea how good this is, I'm really excited about it. I've not tried this one yet. I'm trying to give it at least a couple of weeks, but I have a feeling it's going to be terrific. So that wraps up my week. I'm excited about week 3. I know you guys are as well. I've been getting some great pictures. I'm really looking forward to putting out the video of what you've been preserving. That'll come out on Wednesday, so keep an eye out for that. And I appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you for being here, and I will see you next week.